The Broncos kick off the 2022 regular season with one of the most anticipated games in the entire league next season. The Great Revenge Game. Broncos at Seahawks, Monday Night Football, Russell Wilson's return to Seattle, Shelby Harris, Noah Fant, and Drew Lock facing off against their former teams, the Super Bowl 48 rematch. There is storyline galore with this game. Of course, all eyes across the league will be on this game, as quarterback Russell Wilson will be facing off against the franchise that drafted him all the way back in 2012, and with whom he spent 10 seasons and won a Super Bowl. Following the Seahawks' bitterly disappointing loss to the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 49, Wilson saw a majority of the talent around him diminish, with the Seahawks front office not making consistently sufficient moves to compensate. This all reached its boiling point in the 2021 season as Seattle finished the year 7-10, their first losing season and only their second time missing the playoffs in the Russell Wilson era. After seeing Tom Brady and Matthew Stafford win a championship in their first season with their new teams, Wilson realized that his best chance to win a championship was to leave Seattle and join a team that had a more competitive roster around him. Wilson approached the Seahawks and requested a trade. The Seahawks granted that request, allowing Russell to choose his next team from a list of suitors. It was very clear to Russ that Denver had the most championship-ready roster on that list, which is the main reason why Russ chose the Broncos. I don't feel that there is bad blood between Russ and the Seahawks. At the end of the day, the relationship had run its course philosophically. Russ and the Seahawks simply weren't on the same page. Depending on what Seattle does with the draft capital that they acquired in the trade, this could be a win-win scenario for all parties involved. Although I don't think there will be animosity, given Russ's competitive nature, you know he is going to want to go into Seattle and light up his former team. Then, of course, there is the storyline of the three former Broncos players, Noah Fant, Shelby Harris, and Drew Lock, facing off against their former team. Fant was our former first-round pick back in 2019. He showed flashes at the tight end position during his 3 seasons in Denver, but he never quite lived up to his draft status. Granted, not all of it was his fault, as he was held back by poor coaching and poor quarterback play, but what separates the good players from the great players is their ability to overcome all of the crap that's surrounding them and still produce. Shelby Harris, during his tenure in the Mile High City, was one of the more beloved players on the team. He bounced around the league during his first 3 seasons, spending time with the Jets, Raiders, and Cowboys before finally finding a home in Denver and becoming a stalwart on our defensive line. Shelby recorded 21.5 sacks during his 5 seasons here in Denver. Shelby will be best remembered for his many clutch plays made in a Broncos uniform. Fans will immediately think back to Shelby's first game as a Bronco in 2017 when he blocked a game-winning field goal against the Chargers, and then to 2018 when he picked off Ben Roethlisberger in the end zone to seal a victory for the Broncos. Shelby is a player who made a massive impact in the Denver community both on and off the field, and is a guy who I will continue to root for no matter what uniform he is wearing. Then there's Drew Lock, the most polarizing player in Broncos country since Tim Tebow. Lock was drafted by the Broncos in the second round of the 2019 NFL Draft out of Missouri by former GM John Elway. After struggling to find a successor to Peyton Manning for 4 seasons at the time, many members of Broncos country were hoping that Lock could be that guy. After starting 5 games in 2019 following the failed Joe Flacco and Brandon Allen experiments, Lock did show some promise, leading the Broncos to a 5-1 record. Although Lock did display high-level arm talent, he also displayed poor footwork, a lack of pocket presence, and inconsistent decision-making. Locke possessed a gunslinger mentality, and sometimes he trusted his arm too much, and it would get him in trouble. Locke was named the starter for the 2020 season, but unfortunately, he did not take the strides that the Broncos hoped he would. In 2020, Locke threw just 16 touchdowns to a league-high 15 interceptions, and he was graded by Pro Football Focus as the 5th worst out of 38 eligible quarterbacks in the 2020 season, so he didn't even post a starting grade. In the 2021 offseason, the Broncos brought in competition for Locke, trading a 6th-round pick to the Carolina Panthers in exchange for quarterback Teddy Bridgewater. Bridgewater beat out Locke for the starting job in an open competition in training camp, relegating Locke to a backup role in 2021. Although Drew did appear in 5 games, making 3 starts due to various Bridgewater ailments, it was very clear that his time in Denver was coming to an end. Locke gets a much-needed fresh start in Seattle, and he's going to an organization that seems to be high on him and doesn't just view him as a throw-in piece as part of the trade. That being said, according to Seahawks head coach Pete Carroll, Geno Smith, who started 3 games for the Seahawks last season, is the farthest ahead in their quarterback competition. So it will be interesting to see if it is Drew Lock or Geno Smith taking the Week 1 opening snap for the Seattle Seahawks in the post-Russell Wilson era. With as much storyline as there is still a football game to be played. On paper at least, the Broncos have a way more well-rounded roster than the Seattle Seahawks, who are in the early stages of a rebuild. If the Broncos are the team that they aspire to be this season, then they should go into Seattle and take care of business against an inferior opponent. I would go as far as to say this is a must-win game for them if they are going to want to prove that they are ready to compete with the top dogs in the AFC, such as the Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs, and Cincinnati Bengals.